Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to day 26 of Quran in a Year Plus, where we learn to look at the world and live life through the lens of the Quran. Today we're going to be looking at verses 236 to 245 of Surah Baqara. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لا جناح عليكم إن طلقتم النساء ما لم تمسوهن أو تفرضوا لهن فريضة ومتعوهن على الموسع قدره وعلى المقتر قدره متاعا بالمعروف حقا على المحسنين. There is no sin on you if you divorce your wives with whom you have entered into marriage before consummating the marriage and before you have fixed a dowry for them. If you must divorce them in such a situation, they will not be entitled to any dowry from you, but they must be given something that they will enjoy to make it easy on them. This must be done by both a rich and a poor man in accordance with their financial abilities. This gift is binding on those who wish to excel in their actions and dealings. وَإِن طَلَّقْتُمُوهُنَّ مِن قَبْلِ أَن تَمَسُّوهُنَّ وقد فرضتم لهن فريضة فنصف ما فرضتم إلا أن يعفون أو يعفو الذي بيده عقدة النكاح وأن تعفوا أقرب للتقوى ولا تنسوا الفضل بينكم إن الله بما تعملون بصير. If you divorce your wives with whom you have entered into marriage before having consummated the marriage, and you have already fixed the amount of dowry, you will have to pay half of this amount to them unless they give up this right of theirs or the husband wishes to pay the full dowry. And to give up the right, if she forgoes her right, or he pays in full, is closer to fearing Allah and obeying Him. And do not forget the graciousness between yourselves. Do not forget to show kindness and compassion to one another regarding the rights. Allah sees what you do, so try to do what is best to earn His reward. حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى وقوموا لله قانتين. Guard your prayers by fulfilling them completely as Allah has instructed. In particular, guard the middle prayer, which is the Asr prayer, and stand before Allah in submission and devotion. فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ فَرِجَالًا أَوْ رُكْبَانًا فإذا أمنتم فاذكروا الله كما علمكم ما لم تكونوا تعلمون. If you fear danger from an enemy or the like, and you are unable to perform the prayer in its full manner, then pray while walking or riding on camels, horses, or in any way you can. If the fear of danger has subsided, remember Allah in all the ways of remembrance He has taught you. And from them is performing prayer in its entirety. He has taught you what you did not know from light and guidance. وَالَّذِينَ يُتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنكُمْ وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا وَصِيَّةً لِأَزْوَاجِهِمْ مَتَاعًا إِلَى الْحَوْلِ غَيْرَ إِخْرَاجٍ فإن خرجن فلا جناح عليكم فيما فعلن في أنفسهن من معروف والله عزيز حكيم. Those of you who pass away leaving behind wives must make a bequest for them to be provided with accommodation and maintenance for 1 year in which your heirs may not remove them. This is to make up for the loss they have suffered and out of respect for the deceased. If they leave before the end of the year by their own choice, there will be no sin on either of you or them for what they do with themselves in terms of beautification and making themselves pleasant. Allah is mighty and no one can overpower him. He is wise in his planning, legislation, and decree. It should be noted that the majority of the Mufassirun, the Quranic scholars, are of the opinion that the law contained in this verse has been abrogated by the verse, when someone passes away and leaves behind a wife who is not pregnant, these women must wait for a period of 4 months and 10 days. وَلِلْمُطَلَّقَاتِ مَتَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. Divorced women should be gifted something such as clothing, money, or the like. Such provision must fall within the husband's financial ability, and it is the duty of those who are mindful of Allah to fulfill His instructions and avoid His prohibitions. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. As with the previous explanation, Allah explains these verses containing His limits and laws to the believers so that they understand and practice them to achieve the good of this world and the hereafter. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ خَرَجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ وَهُمْ أُلُوفٌ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ فَقَالَ لَهُمُ اللَّهُ مُوتُوا ثُمَّ أَحْيَاهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. Do you not know, O Prophet, about those who left their homes in huge numbers, fearing death due to the plague or the like? This refers to a group of people from Bani Israel. Allah said to them, "Die," and they did. Then Allah brought them back to life to show them that all matters are in His hands and that they have no control over any benefit or harm that may befall them. Allah is gracious and bountiful to people, but most people are not thankful to Allah for His favors. وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Fight, O believers, the enemies of Allah in support of His religion and to elevate His word. Know that Allah hears your statements and knows your intentions and actions, and that He will reward you accordingly for them. مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا فَيُضَاعِفَهُ لَهُ أَضْعَافًا كَثِيرَةً وَاللَّهُ يَقْبِضُ وَيَبْسُطُ وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. Who will act as a lender and spend his wealth in the path of Allah willingly with a good heart and intention so that this may come back to him multiplied? Allah restricts and widens provision and health in accordance with His wisdom and justice. In the afterlife you will return to Him alone, and He will reward you for your actions accordingly. Now, as we reflect over today's verses, we see that one of the things is that the closest people to true taqwa are those who are able to pardon and forgive. And whoever willingly gives up his personal right has acted with ihsan. And ihsan is the hallmark of taqwa, forgiveness and forbearance when it comes to dealings with one another, brings a person nearer to achieving the taqwa of Allah. They train the soul upon humility, detachment from the dunya, and preferring the hereafter. Now Allah highlights that what happens in a situation where two people get married, but before they consummate the marriage, they end up getting divorced, but the dowry has already been stipulated. Now it is the right of the bride that she gets half the amount. That's the right. But Allah encourages to overlook that, whether the bride gives up her share or the husband pays the entire amount. And this is where the key is, where He says, وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. And do not forget the graciousness, the goodness, the kindness that's there between you. Now, if we study this verse and we look at it from a technical manner, then that's the ruling that comes out, that what happens in a situation where two people get married and before the consummation, they get divorced, but the mahar has already been stipulated. And you get the answer that she is deserving of half of it. But the real transformation comes from the second part of the verse. Now let's put this into context. That imagine two people meet one another. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. They like one another. They go through the process. They get to know each other. They plan the wedding. They invite all the guests. And people show up. They enjoy. The wedding is done. And now they go back together. And in that situation, one of them has cold feet and decides that, they don't want to go through with this. Now, can you imagine the emotions that's there and how upset a person can be? And then to include the family members that we just spent all this time and we invested so much money, time, invited all these people, and not even a few hours later and you guys, don't want to go through with this? Can you imagine the emotions that's there? Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَا تَنْسَبُوا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. But despite that, don't forget the graciousness that's there. Now the real question is, how long have they known each other? How long do the families know each other? Like what grace has been built up that Allah is telling them, don't forget it. But nonetheless, He's saying, don't forget the good memories, even in that short span of time where a person is mindful of Allah and does that which is just. The bare minimum, that is an obligation on everyone, is justice and fairness. This is an obligation. Take what is due and give what is due. But grace and excellence is recommended. Giving what is not required, forgiving what is owed, and overlooking what is in the heart. Now, we also derive a principle from this, that وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Don't forget the goodness that's there in your relationships. Allah is telling this to people who've just been married. What about those individuals who've been married for 2 years, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, for even more than that? And even relationships between people, that don't forget the goodness that's there. The years of good memories, of good experiences. Don't forget it, because it's very easy to forget. When negative things happen, that's what stays on our mind. And it's easy to forget all the good memories. So we want to train ourselves to be able to notice the positive and to deal with one another with justice and fairly. And to be able to have those conversations, those pressing matters that's there, that a person learns how to engage in dialogue in a way that allows both sides to be heard. A simple framework is, hey, I observed something. This made me feel this way. And in my head, this is what I start worrying about. And then they put a request forward. So when a person engages in a way that is non-confrontational, they're neutral. They're saying that, I noticed this, I heard this, it made me start feeling this. And then in my head, this is where it goes and I start worrying in this manner. The person is more likely to hear them out. But when it's confrontational, criticism, then people naturally are going to get defensive and the conversation is not going to go too far. And one interesting thing is that you notice that in between these rulings of Allah saying about divorce, about proposals, about nursing, comes حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages to take the prayer seriously. And Ibn Ashur, he mentions that the shift in the Quran from, he didn't say ihfadhu, guard and preserve, but he said hafidhu, which means to diligently maintain. It signifies that prayer must be observed completely in knowledge, in form, in timing, and its proper performance with the true mindfulness of Allah. Because the nature of these situations and these types of relationships, when a person is going through a difficult situation, then the emotions take over, the ego takes over, the lower self takes over. But that's why guarding the salah is so important. And Shaykh al-Tantawi, he mentions that through that prayer, they are able to remind themselves of Allah. That we see throughout these verses, be mindful of Allah, know that He's observing, know that He knows everything, know that He knows what's in your hearts. That through that connection with Allah, when we stand in front of Him and we recite Maliki Yawmiddin, that He is the master of the day of judgment, that I'm going to be standing in front of Him, that grounds a person to deal fairly with the other individual. And if not, it encourages them to deal with them in a better manner as well. And that's our anchor. It's a reminder that no matter what difficulties or conflicts we face, prayer is our strongest aid. It's what keeps our hearts steady when relationships get messy. It aligns us with our purpose. It doesn't let our ego and shaitan take over. And no matter the situation, it encourages us to do the right thing. And we also want to remind ourselves that Allah, He said, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. That Allah, the Almighty, ذُو فَضْل, He is the possessor of extreme bounty upon people. That how much favors, how many blessings has He showered me with. But most people, they're ungrateful. So as we walk away from today's episode, we want to try that if I'm in a situation, maybe with my spouse, another individual, or even in traffic, somebody cuts me off, where I have a right that's there. But instead of me demanding my right, can I let it go for Allah's sake? Can I say in my heart that I choose ihsan? I choose Allah to be rewarded by you. Because we remind ourselves that Inna Allah yuhibbul muhsinin, that Allah loves those who do good. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those individuals who always deal fairly with one another. May He allow us to grow in our relationship and to strive for excellence, to be able to overlook people's shortcomings, to be able to always strive and do what is best. I'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.